the surprising features of creative thinking is that the single most important determinant of the quality of your ideas is actually the quantity of your ideas. And so if you want to inculcate creativity, instead of thinking about how do I get better ideas, a different way to think about it is by focusing on generating more. As the famous Nobel Prize winning chemist Linus Pauling once said, he was asked, because he certainly won 2 Nobel Prizes, but he was in the hunt for the third one. Watson and Crick beat him in discovering the double helix structure of DNA. But when someone asked him once, Linus, I assume they called him Linus, Linus, how do you come up with so many great ideas? What he said was simple. To get a good idea, you need a lot of ideas. And the thing that's shocking to most people is, what's the definition of a lot? How many ideas is a lot of ideas? Here's the research that our colleague at Stanford, Bob Sutton, has conducted. This is a lot of ideas. To get to 2 to 3 successful or commercially viable innovations, you need to start with 4,000. And that's shocking to people, but it's mostly shocking to people who aren't used to consistently coming up with ideas. If you're used to consistently coming up with ideas, you know you're coming up with stuff all the time. And yeah, a very small percentage of the things you come up with actually work. As Kevin Kelly, the founder of Wired magazine, once said, a multitude of bad ideas is necessary for a good idea. And yet, our tendency to close, as we discussed earlier, this tendency of cognitive closure, of seeking to resolve the ambiguity, what it does is it keeps us from our best ideas. Because a brainstorm is what? It's effectively an implicit admission, we don't have the answer yet. And most folks don't like to stay in that place. That's why the average brainstorm yields 2 ideas, because most people want to get past the moment of admitting they don't know as quickly as possible. So what do we advocate? And what is this session all about today? It's all about the notion of practice. We want to overcome these cognitive biases through routine practice. And just like you overcome your bias towards a lazy lifestyle by going on a run, we'd recommend having a practice around your creative abilities and your creative muscles. And when you think about it, every single problem we face is an idea problem, meaning what? What you need are good ideas. And if you know you need good ideas, then you know you need lots of ideas. As an example, in my house, we face the west. And so that means in the afternoon, we get lots of sun on the front of our house. That is trouble for the grocery deliveries where perishable goods and frozen goods become a state of emergency quickly. To me, it's a task. It's a hassle whenever there are groceries to, drag them in. And I can take, 2 bags at a time, maybe 4, because those paper bags are hard to carry multiples of. And so, for me, it's a task. One day I enlisted my 9-year-old daughter to help me with the task. And for her, it wasn't a task. It was an opportunity for creativity. And what was to me a boring chore was for her an opportunity to express inventiveness and creativity. You see her there pulling her 2-year-old sister on the roller coaster she created, right? But the point is, I approach the problem as if there's one right answer, and it involves drudgery. Someone else approaches the problem radically different. And the same is true for almost every problem we face. If we'd stop and say, let's generate a volume of ideas, we could experience creative epiphanies much more frequently. And so the practice we advocate is a practice that we call the daily idea quota, where we flip our orientation from, instead of thinking about the one right answer, we flip and say, what are lots of answers, possible answers? And what we want to do is we want to implement this daily practice. It's this daily routine or ritual of generating a volume of not just good ideas, but also bad ideas that ultimately leads to the resilience needed to overcome that pernicious cognitive bias of seeking cognitive closure. So we have asked our dear colleague, Dr. Kathryn Segovia, to lead us through an exercise today where we will each build a customized habit to enable us to overcome this cognitive bias. And our hope is that over the course of... over the course of the holiday break, everyone will have a chance to practice this habit and build it into a routine before we come back to work and craziness and busyness. And we'll have built up a little bit of a rhythm and ritual that enables us to delay cognitive closure and resist that tendency to seek cognitive closure just a little bit longer. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kathryn. Make sure you've got a pen and paper and a notepad.
All right, so welcome to my daughter's playroom, otherwise known as the Delight Studio, hopefully, a light board that we've created for a little bit of a different way of interacting together today. I am going to be pretty active in chat. In fact, that's the best way to be able to kind of interact today for me. So if you have a question or a comment or something's not clear, literally or figuratively, feel free to go ahead and type that in chat. I love getting to facilitate this work and honestly get to do this work for myself. I find that habit formation and building a practice is an important part of anything in my life that is really important to me. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And so just like Jeremy said, today we are going to work on designing a practice. And the way we think about that, I guess, of course, maybe you're familiar with the D.school. We think many things can be designed, especially things that interface with humans. And so we believe that you can design a practice. And maybe that the most fundamental kind of element, if I were a chemist, I think the atom of this tiniest part that we can look at is a habit. And habits are broken down into even smaller parts. So maybe this is like a subatomic. I don't even know. I think this is getting beyond me, but a very tiny, tiny, tiny. Look at the tiniest building blocks of how you develop a practice. And that's what we're going to get to do today. Edge of my universe, approximately. Great. Okay, so what I would like to propose is this. Let's look at an XY graph, right? So if I draw the Y here for you, you have to be a little patient with me because I'm looking backwards. And there's the X axis. What I would like to propose is that X is time. Okay, so this is a T down here. Easy to draw backwards, fortunately. And this is progress or impact, all right? Okay, so if you are developing a new skill, let's say you're starting here down kind of low here, right? You're at the very beginning, you don't have a lot of progress and you're really early in time. What might you expect this curve to look like? Feel free to put it in chat. Yeah, okay, I'm a little bit behind on chat. I love this. Thank you so much. Very cool. What do you think it would look like? Yes, Fernando, I have thoughts on that, except things are going to reverse in a second, so it gets complicated or magical. Oh, slow at first and then accelerating. That's pretty cool. Okay, I love that thought. So you got a +1 out of 45%. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Oh, inverse quadratic. Okay, Zine, you can teach the follow-up lecture to this because I think you've gone above me. I would propose that if you're a really rational human being, you might think, okay, with a little bit of time, you get a little bit better. And a little more time, you get a little bit better. A little bit of time, you get a little bit better, right? It might look something like this. Now, some of you have different exponential increase. Man, we got smart people on this call. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. So you might think it looks like this. Some of you have a different proposal, and I think that's pretty cool. What we actually learn in this, let me see if I can add a couple of details here, is that progress is really not linear. And so there's a part of this that might not fall to your expectations or your hope that with a little bit of time, you get a little bit better. What we know is that the graphs actually look a lot like this. So here we're going to get really mathematical. So some of you can help me. This has stretched my learning. Let's pretend that instead of, let's say you start with, maybe you've been at a d.school workshop or you've learned a new skill and you kind of start here, okay? You got a little bit of progress and now we're going to start to track you on time. Okay, if you didn't get better or worse over time, you would just be a straight line, of course. You would look something like this. Okay, but let's propose something else. What if this happened? What if you got 1% worse each day? All right, you got 1% worse each day. The mathematical equation that represents that would be this. So you'd be 0.99 raised to 365th, it's a good word, power. And so you would eventually go down to, and it would happen really quickly, you would go down to almost nothing over the year, right? Your progress would basically disappear to zero. It looks something like that. Okay. But let's propose something else, which doesn't necessarily seem very impactful or really exciting or invigorating. Let's just propose that you got 1% better each day. Just 1%. That's not very much, right? That's not too high of a bar or a lot of pressure. If you get 1% better each day, the mathematical equation looks like what I have above, right? 0.01 to the 365th. And you can see that this is 40, almost 40x better than where you started. Now that, I think, is pretty incredible. And that line looks like this, which is maybe somewhat aggravating, I think. You don't see very much difference at all from staying stagnant. And then some of you expected this. It goes zoom, like this. I think some of you actually predicted the opposite, that you might like increase quickly and then kind of level out. Okay, so I find this pretty interesting. And this is assuming a few things, right? Assuming we can actually get 1% better each day, which probably doesn't happen exactly like that. So now, where do I find the interesting part of this graph? I want to do this a little bit just so you can see. Okay, I think that there's a really interesting part of this graph. It's kind of frustrating. Okay, this part right here, folks. Let's see if I can put up my white sheet.
I think the technical link to that is the trough of despair, right, Kathryn?
This part that I just shaded in. Anybody have thoughts? What's that part? All right, the top line here is the linear progress. If you assumed you were linear, a little bit better each day. This is the track if you're just getting 1% better each day. The valley of despair, productive struggle. We've got an optimist on the line. The design spot. That's a really great point. We should do another workshop. We should design for this moment and habit formation. That's a great idea. That's not happening today, but we could do that. And I really like that idea. The learning pit, the frustrating zone, anxiety, ooh, another optimist, the creativity zone. I love it. I find this is like the suck zone. This is where if you're going to get better, and currently, by the way, you think you should be better than you are. Have you been at that moment in that where you're like, I've been working on this forever. This should be easier. I should be better. And yet every other kind of force or practitioner or researcher in habit formation and learning would say, nope, you're right on track. Okay, so this part is just where we have to embrace the suck. And I love the idea of doing a workshop on exactly those moments. This would probably come in January for most of us, or actually a little bit later. I think it's supposed to start around day 40 or so. And so this would be a fun spot to design for. But for right now, we're here. And we ultimately want to get up here, right? And we know this track looks like this. So for me, this part actually, even though this is emotionally hard, this is behaviorally hard right here. It's hard to get a habit that you start doing, and that most researchers suggest you need to do it for about 65 days to make it almost automatic in your life. And what happens, I think, in fact, should we just be transparent? Maybe everybody put in chat a habit you started that you didn't actually end up finishing. So let's see, one for me recently was, I was going to run every day in the pandemic. I actually did it kind of decent, but about, a few months into that stopped. Journaling daily. Yes, I had that habit too. Yeah, no longer 21 days. True. It's a little bit more than that, most people believe, for automaticity. I think it's the right word. Automation, mediation, or meditation. Mediation would be another interesting thing. No carbs. Yeah. Okay. So this zone is what we're going to design for today. We could look at this in a follow-up workshop. I think that's really cool. Okay. So a couple things to share with you about this. One is, I didn't bring any eraser, so I'm just going to, a constraint is the, what did they say it? Constraint is the, mother of innovation. There we go. Okay, so there are many stories you can look up that follow this. Actually, one of the stories that James Clear uses in his I love it. By the way, I can't hear you. So pretend I'm deaf. Because of an audio issue, I'm not hearing anything. So if somebody's trying to weigh in, I'm not ignoring you. Just put it in chat and then I guess I'll figure this out. There are many stories. So one is a really cool one. Anybody here from Great Britain or England? Might be. Yeah, I see some hands. Okay, so you had a really cool cycling team a while ago that sucked for a long time. Never won a single Tour de France, but they hired a new coach. And do you know what his mission was? It was actually just to make the team 1% better every day. And they did things in many realms where they tried to get 1% better. They decided to bring their own pillows with them when they traveled so they could get better sleep. They learned from doctors how to really wash their hands well pre-pandemic, which is interesting because they didn't want to get any sickness in their team. They painted the inside walls of their trailers with a different material and paint because they didn't want dust to accumulate and settle in the mechanics of the bicycle. And so anyway, they made 1% changes in many different realms for a very long time. You can look them up if you'd like. In fact, I don't know if I have a note on the coach's name here. But their goal was to win one tour in the next 10 years. Yeah, somebody's got it. Man, I love facilitating with you guys. You're like the best co-facilitators. Thank you. Okay, so they had this goal, one Tour de France in 10 years. Anybody want to guess what they actually achieved by just getting 1% better? Any ideas? They were champions. I love it. Yes, that's true. Okay, they won a tour in 5 years. Their first one was within 5 years, and then 5 of the next 6 years after that. Whoa, that's amazing. There are other things that grow in this way for good and for bad. Bamboo actually grows like this. True story, I had a huge area of bamboo near my home, and it started in one tiny little terracotta pot. And over the 10 years before I lived here, it spread everywhere. And I still find shoots of bamboo popping up in random places. Bamboo grows like that. Cancer grows like this. So anyway, an exponential form of growth. The impact is delayed, just like an investment. And so I want to focus today, because there is this zone of disparity or zone of, what did people say? I can't remember some of the great ones you had, but this really hard zone in the center where you have to get through. I would like us to design a habit that is well designed, so well designed that it's actually pretty well equipped to move through this hard period. Okay, there's many ways you could think about getting through this. A lot of people assume it's behavioral, that I need to be better, I need to be tougher. There's a lot of work on grit. I need to have more grit. What we find is that it's actually not so much about changing you. It's about looking at your context. It's about making the task simpler. The context and your environment support you. You can get a lot more impact there than most of us believe in a lot of the change work we're trying to do. It's not about changing the people. It's about making the environment simpler and easier to embrace that new behavior. And so some of what we're going to do today will focus on that. Okay, man, I'm having too much fun with you. You guys all signed up for the 2-hour workshop, right? I need to speed it along. Okay, so here we go. We have 4 parts to this habit that we're going to develop. Let's see if I can go this way a little bit so you can see better. Yeah. All right, so yeah, removing constraints. People have, oh, this is fabulous. Yeah, I could link some research articles, but you'll find them. There's some really cool ones. Actually, some of the early work was around people getting vaccinated before COVID, just if they would get, I think it was the flu vaccine, or maybe it was even earlier, maybe it was like polio or something, but trying to see how many people they could get vaccinated. Maybe there's some history repeats itself, they say, right? So maybe there's some work for us there to understand. Okay, 4 parts that we're going to look at today, which I think are really interesting. I think we're going to focus on the first 2. To me, those are the most influential, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the first one here is going to be cue. Okay, the first thing that happens in a habit cycle, and we'll kind of go around this way, is that you're cued to do the habit in some way. Okay, a lot of this is actually part of your environment and happens to you. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. We'll leverage that. The next one is that you have a craving. Gosh, isn't this great? We could design cravings. This is my favorite part, honestly, is to think about what do I crave and how do I design around it. It can be really fun. The next one is you have a response of some sort. This is what most people think about when they think about designing a habit, like doing the thing. It's actually a tiny part of it in many ways. And then finally, the reward, right? How do you reward yourself? Many different ways of looking at it for engaging this new behavior. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of work this way. I think we'll do the first two, maybe three. We'll see how it goes. All right. So let's focus on the first one on cue. And what I'd like to tell you about the cue is that our goal is to make it really obvious. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about not the things that you do to yourself every day, right? That you have to have volition, actively get up and do, be awake for, be conscientious for, etc. Just things that happen to you. Let's put them in chat. So it feels kind of like a group work here. We only have to do 10% of the work and we get to leverage 100% of the impact. Okay, so here's what you do. First thing that happens to me in the morning is the sun comes up, the alarm goes off. That's a little cheating because I set that alarm. Love it. What else happens to you throughout your day? You meditate. That's beautiful. Somebody's got a habit already going. I open my eyes. That's a great one, right? You can't go through your day without opening your eyes. That's super obvious. You go for a walk. That's cool. You get your kids up. Yes. Or they wake me up. I finally entered that category. I love it and hate it. You do prayer. Okay, great. You hug your kiddos. That's so great. You daydream or you feed the cats. That's a great one, right? Anybody, cheers, make coffee in the morning a couple times. That's another one that usually you do, but also kind of, I don't know if you get through a day without doing it most of the time. Drink a glass of water, so much healthier. Go to the bathroom. That sounds silly, but super regular, really good habit cue. Somebody I know designed their upper body strength around using the restroom. Every time they went to the bathroom, they did 10 push-ups. Or before you go to the bathroom, even better. Curse your boss. Okay, that's kind of funny. If it happens every day, okay, but hopefully it doesn't. And maybe brush your teeth is a great one. Okay, so your goal is to make it obvious, and it should be obvious. Most of the time, it's a behavior that's going to come before your habit. So you might think about the time of the day that you're most equipped to engage this new habit. Sometimes it's about context. It's about the place you're in. Maybe you're driving somewhere or you sit down at your desk. That can be a really great cue. I don't think I made this clear early on. The habit we'd like to design around today is this challenge of needing more ideas than you have. We would like to suggest that the habit you should implement over the holidays and the coming weeks and months is that you should be making a list of at least 10 ideas a day. It could be on any topic. It could be about something for work. It could be about something for family vacation planning. It could be about the way that you want to reorganize your closet or the shopping, maybe even a shopping list almost. That's a pretty easy one. Maybe a food planning idea list. It could be really anything. So don't be weighted by work if that feels heavy right now. Don't even be weighted by the hardest challenge at work. Maybe you need to design an offsite. Okay, this could be, if that's fun to you, maybe this could be your first idea prompt. But the prompt isn't important to us. It's the number of ideas. A list of 10 ideas per day, exactly. And that's what we're calling the idea quota. This is fun. I can kind of just read what Jeremy's chatting too. I can do a live read of Jeremy's chat. That's like a poetry slam or something, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is let's spend a little bit of time thinking about all of the cues that are obvious to you and select one. When would you like to have this new habit enter your day? All right, it should be a really obvious cue. And it should be a time where you can embrace probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you want to give yourself the luxury of time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. All right, so we've designed a cue. Hopefully it's something really specific. It happens to you every day. It should happen to you, I would say, 5 days a week. Better 7 days a week, all right? And hopefully at that point, not hopefully, you have to have 15 to 20 minutes in that moment to create your idea quota. So it can't be something that happens to you and boom, you have to go on to something else. It has to be a spot where you have a little bit of time. Okay, so select your cue based on that. Right? Would you please drop your cue in chat? Okay, would you drop your cue in chat? What is your cue? This is also something known as habit stacking. So you take something that happens to you regularly and you stack your new habit with it, okay? This is a way of increasing your chance of success for actually completing your new habit. Yeah, showering while I'm drinking my latte, etc. Okay, these are fabulous. Great, yeah, coffee's a very common one actually. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. We have cue, all right? After cue, we have craving. Sorry about that. This is my favorite one to design. Okay, think about something during the time of your cue during that day, right? So if it's in the morning, that might be a different craving that you would have. If it's in the afternoon, if it's in the evening, what's something? I think craving is sometimes associated with like food or consuming something, but you can also just crave sitting in the sunshine. You can crave watching a YouTube clip. You can crave scrolling social media, for good and for bad. This is one that I've used recently. I wanted to get into more resistance training, and I decided that my only social media time could be while I was doing resistance training. So I have like the resistance training video and social media lives, and that's what I could do. So what's something that you crave that will get you to be even more interested in completing your habit that you might than you might otherwise be? The goal with craving, get ready, this is fun, is to make it irresistible. Yeah, that's a hoot, I think. Okay, so what's something that's irresistible to you? Is it chocolate? Is it coffee? You could leverage it in that way, right? Like maybe your craving is your second cup of coffee, or maybe if you're like me, a little whipping cream in your coffee during the holidays. I don't know what you put in your coffee, but that's my drug of choice. Yeah, the heavy stuff, like not half and half. I'm way beyond that at this point. So that's what I crave. You might have something like that. Okay, so why don't we do this? Let's do craving breakout rooms. This is totally, I think this is very festive and fun. Go to your breakout room of a few people, video on if you want them, video off if you don't. You're trying to identify a craving that's irresistible, because what we're going to do is put that right after your idea quota so that your interest in completing it is even heavier. Okay, great. So we have your cue and we want to make it obvious. We have your craving and we want to make it irresistible. I'd like you to fill out this Mad Lib right now that will help you capture what you have so far. All right, so the Mad Lib is this. The first one is going to be blank will cue me to blank. Okay, what's your cue is the first one. Making my coffee in the morning, or boiling the water for coffee in the morning, will cue me to, and here you want to write in, complete my idea quota, or generate 10 ideas. Okay. Blank will cue me to blank. And then we'll put a comma after I get to blank. Feel free to drop it in chat, wherever you're going to write it for yourself. There are so many cool craving stories. I had one student tell me that his craving was watching streaming on TV. So and his habit that he wanted to create was cycling, at-home cycling. So he was mechanically inclined. He connected his bicycle to his Apple TV, such that if it wasn't spinning, the TV couldn't be on. And so this created like a forced connection between his craving and his response, his habit. And so in order to watch TV, he'd have to be pedaling. Use that as inspiration for what might you even like closer link one thing for the other, right? Is it like for every idea, you get one sip of coffee? That could be telling. Yeah, truly cool. Really cool ways to design these habits. Okay, so here's what I want to tell you. There is a little bit more that you can design around. I think they're pretty simple. These are the fun ones in my mind. The next is the response, which is your habit, is your 10 ideas. And the goal here would be to make it easy. Okay, it should be, research say, it should be something that you can do in 2 minutes. Okay, so maybe 10 ideas is too much. Maybe you want to start with your habit of 5 ideas or 3 ideas. All right, make it easy enough that you will complete it every day. If you're not completing it every day, it's not you. It's me. No, it's the habit. Okay, you need to make it smaller. You need to make it easier. All right. And then the last one is your reward. And this is very similarly linked to craving in some ways. But your reward can go beyond. You want to feel satisfied at the end that you've done this thing. For many of us, we have a reward that is social for things that we do at work or in our family lives. We are acknowledged socially for what we do. So is there a buddy you want to connect with that you are going to reward each other, that social acknowledgement? Is it posting your ideas to our WhatsApp thread that we've created for our Masters of Creativity? Is it creating a sticker chart? We're not so far past those days as adults that a sticker chart isn't rewarding, or a calendar. Do you put a dot every day that you completed your habit? Make it satisfying to look back at your progress. All right. Okay, so these are the things you're driving for. You have 2 of them already. I'd say you even have this one, 10 ideas or less. Is there a social element to rewarding yourself for this work? Okay, I think with that, I want to give us some time to answer questions, to wrap. I apologize for a little bit of the tech issues I've had today, but it's been so fun to have so many smart people on the call and come up with even more ideas for how we could design around a creative practice than I knew before I started. So thanks for teaching me.
Thank you, Kathryn. Hopefully you start to see some love happen in the Twitter sphere. I can put that back up if people want to. But again, the idea with inculcating creativity is it's about practice. Your creative ability, we deeply believe, is a craft that's honed through conscious practice. And the very simple practice we recommend is simply flipping your orientation from a quality orientation to a quantity orientation at least once a day. I dropped this in chat, this link here, but one thing I've realized, I just made this right now, that's why it's so ugly. But because if I made it earlier, it would have been beautiful, right? But I wrote an article about this briefly, the challenge of having things to idea quota on. After about a week, I realized I don't know what things I'm focused on the answer for. So I needed to keep a list of things that I needed an idea quota on. Anyway, that's the basic gist of it. But one thing we want to say just as we wrap, and then Laura, maybe I'll put it to you to see if there's any interesting questions in chat, or folks, if you have questions, do drop them in chat. One of the things we'd say is you have to remember the basic statistics is the normal distribution. Almost everything in life, how much my hairline will recede in any given year, right? How tall, people are, everything comes down to normal distributions. And the same is true of your ideas, which is to say what? The vast majority of your ideas, again, where does this 4,000 come from? The 4,000 comes from Bob Sutton's research, right? So if you take those 4,000 ideas, the reality is most of them are in the middle of the bell curve. They're just ordinary ideas, right? Nobody just wants ordinary ideas, right? Everybody wants genius ideas, which is a small subset of all the ideas you've got, right? And then on the other side of the distribution, though, is the downright goofy stuff. And nobody really wants that. Nobody wants to put up the goofy stuff. But the reality is the only way you get to genius stuff is by having a high volume, high variation practice. This is the essential thing. And if you say, you know what, I don't want, I'm just going to cut off the left-hand side of the distribution. Watch, I'm about to hit the next slide. See what happens when I attempt to cut off the left-hand side of the distribution. Wait, what happened? I can't just cut off one side. I cut off both sides, right? And what's the point? Variation is the key. And if you want the genius stuff, you've got to tolerate the goofy stuff. The goal of the idea quota is not to help you come up with more good ideas. The goal of the idea quota is to help you come up with more ideas, period. And there's going to be a bunch of ordinary, there's going to be a bunch of goofy, and then hopefully you'll get to a bunch of genius too, right? But the question is, which distribution are you willing to engage? And we hope the idea quota gives you permission to engage the left-hand distribution, okay? As Kevin Kelly said, we talked about this at the beginning, a multitude of bad ideas as necessary for one good one.